I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hey there, ghosts and ghouls. I want to first say thank you for listening and following this podcast. We are so grateful for such a wonderful fan base. If you'd like to support this podcast further and help us constantly improve and sustain, we've enabled listener support, and you can find that link at the end of our bio on Spotify. Enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we have a very special guest today. We have Luna Taran.
Hi, guys. I'm Luna Taran, and I'm a ghost tour guide in Savannah, Georgia.
Yes. So Luna is actually going to give us a really interesting perspective today because Luna is from Indonesia originally. So we're going to talk about, Indonesian folklore and ghost tales.
Scary.
Yeah, she has a lot of really crazy stories. So Luna, do you want to tell us kind of like a little bit about your abilities? Because I know you're kind of like clairvoyant, or so if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So from what I know, how I knew I'm a clairvoyant is because my great-grandmother can see spirits, but with animal heads. And then got into my uncle, got into my cousins, got into my mom, and then got into me. And at the first time I actually experienced ghosts when it was 2018, when I got back from Indonesia, because I've been moving around a lot when I was younger. So when I visit Indonesia, I saw this long-haired lady, and I was first shocked, and I actually cried to my mom, and my mom was like, "Oh, your abilities must come out, right? Must have come out." I'm like, I don't know, you didn't tell me about this. And then my mom told me a story. Oh, when I was 6 years old, I went to get water, and then I remember there's kuntilanak. The ghost is called kuntilanak. So kuntilanak is like a long-haired lady, from what I know. So kuntilanak, yeah, it's very scary, and I don't want to see that. So kuntilanak actually sat down on my mom's couch, and my mom literally cried and went to my grandma, and then when she came back, it was gone completely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, so kuntilanak is a spirit that of a woman who died pregnant. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah. It's basically,
and that was the concept. Being familiar very cursory, it seems like that spirit. And it's interesting because I think Indonesia has more female spirits, like female-based spirits, than I've ever encountered in other folklore. And an interesting thing is the concept of dying with a life inside of you.
Yeah,
that especially becomes a revered and frightening concept.
Yeah. All Indonesian demons and ghosts scares me to death, and I do not want to associate that. And then my mom actually took me to my uncle, because my uncle has like the highest power of clairvoyant back home. So when I talked to him about it, he's like, yeah, I know that you can feel it, but you just want to close it because you don't want to see them. I'm like, nope. If I want to see it, I have to say a prayer. So one time, back in Indonesia, I lived in not a mansion, but like a house like that. And then my uncle told me there's like a demon. It's like a Bigfoot Indonesian demon. I forgot what it's called, but it's like kaki gede. I just call it kaki gede because it's like Bigfoot. So that's what my uncle told me. It's behind the bathroom. And then I actually went to the bathroom, and then I said, okay, kaki gede, if you're here, come out right now. So this demon went, like his foot stepped in the bathroom, like out the bathroom, and I was like, I tapped my forehead. I'm like, I'm not seeing that again, because it is very scary. Like it is red and bloody, and I don't want to see that again.
So how do you go about personally, like kind of closing off your ability to see spirits? Because I'm sure there are people watching and listening who also have abilities, and not everybody wants to enjoy the abilities. So how do you personally kind of
close it?
Yeah.
So I just tap my forehead. Because if I tap my forehead, it's gone.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's worth mentioning, too, that the third eye, the concept of this eye that sits right in your forehead, is universal. Like every culture recognizes that our abilities to see and to witness the paranormal, the supernatural, stems from an opening of that third eye.
Yeah.
And so any action that you can take that is performative to close it, paint a red dot over it, do any number of things to close yourself off from this thing. And I've always found it interesting because even in thoroughly westernized society, the concept of that forehead, in Catholic Ash Wednesday and things like that, putting something on your forehead does supposedly delineate the ability of an evil spirit to show itself to you. And bathroom ghosts are especially terrifying because I do not like the concept. I do not like the idea of anything in the bathroom with me. And so, big bloody footed ghoul is not pleasant.
Because my mom told me most demons and evil spirits hides in the bathroom because that's where like it gets dark and everything. So like in Muslim culture, if you actually go to the bathroom in like so long, they will want to like disturb you. So I prefer not to go to the bathroom for too long.
And it's about isolation too. It is about being alone. Like you're at your most vulnerable. Again, not to promote fear of bathrooms. But the more alone you are, the more isolated you are, the easier prey you become. When you are in a group, there's a delineation of energy. When you're alone, you're the only source of energy. And demons and dark things like to hide in the shadows and hide and wait for you to be alone. And decent ghosts, good ghosts, they're not going to go to the bathroom with you. They're like, well, no, that's private time. So if a ghost is willing to interfere with your potty time, it could be a damaging ghost.
Do y'all ever remember that show? I think it was called Just Haunted or Hauntings or something like that. But there was a story that I just remember scared the crap out of me because it was about this person who had a bathroom ghost who would appear as a woman who was completely naked in their shower. And I remember watching that and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to walk into the bathroom at night and I'm going to pull back the shower curtain. There's going to be a lady there like, and I think that is where a lot of, people stem these fears from. It's just because you don't want to, go in somewhere where you're about to be by yourself or, a lot of times it's at night.
Right. And naked, and defenseless, not me. I have swords in my bathroom.
Yes. I also have a bathroom axe.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's,
I do not have one of those.
I really
get
don't.
one.
Yes.
I'm going to, just on the record, get a bathroom sword. Or, you keep something in the bathroom. I have a phobia of bathrooms as it is. So, when you add monsters to it or when you add ghosts to it, demons to it, it's like, oh, great. That's just what I need.
Yes. Actually, JT, who was on our episode last time, my husband, he was the one who introduced me to Bathroom Axe because he kept... I remember I went into his apartment for the first time, and I just see over in the corner this old, antique axe. I'm like, why do you have this in here? He's like, well, sometimes, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to intrude on you, and you need a bathroom axe. So it's like... So there you go.
I'd also like to get back to... Did you say your grandmother saw spirits with animal heads?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was what? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure.
I found that very interesting.
So the way that my uncle told me about my great grandmother is that it has human bodies but animal heads. So it can be like a tiger, it can be like a deer, or any kind of animals like elephants or stuff.
Well, I find that equally fascinating because there's a long running debate about spirit animals and the concept of spirit animals, and a lot of cultures saying this is my culture, and I was like, but it seems to me that universally there are the concepts of animals that represent people that have this, this person has this bear spirit about them or this tiger spirit about them, and in Asia there are a lot of interesting folklores of spirits that are people who appear as animals, or just straight up animals that when you see them you're like, oh, that's that's Grandpa come back to see us. So I was wondering, do you know of any connective reason for it, or were these entities just spirits with animal heads?
Yeah. Honestly, it really depends on spirits, like which spirits, because we call like these spirits, we call it Jinn.
Yes.
Back home, it's not like what like orbs and stuff. We call it Jinn, from what I learned. So Jinn is basically like, excuse me, it can be evil spirits or good spirits, but I've never actually associated with like animal heads with like human bodies, so I don't really know that. But that's what my uncle told me about my grandmother, which is very interesting.
So that brings up an interesting point, the Jinn, and because we tend to categorize these things. And there are a lot of cultures that actually use the word Jinn, and technically what a Jinn is it's a non-human entity. It is something that was never human. It exists as its own species, as its own, and some people believe that they're interdimensional. Some people believe that they are, they derive on the spiritual plane and then they come down to Earth. And a lot of people are like, well, this culture, when they saw them and categorized them as Jinn, and then this culture saw them and categorized them as angels and demons because of their behavior. We drew a line saying, well, this spiritual entity is helping me, it's an angel. This spiritual entity is damaging me, it's a demon. Whereas a Jinn is just like a group. It's like that's the classification, and some of them can be good and some of them can be bad, just like people. And so I think that's really fascinating, because when you talk about cultures that were independent of each other, encountering things, and then saying, I need to name it. I need to come up with a word that covers this thing, and I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. I see a person with an eagle head, and I'm not sure what it is, what it meant, or what something. It meant. What is this communication happening? And so we started categorizing. We come up with these words, Oni and demon and Jinn, to help us put it in a box. We put it in a nice little box. It has a name. We close the box and we're like, thank you, but no thank you.
Because in my culture as well, Muslim culture, likewise, because my family who came to see ghosts are mostly Muslims. But Jinn means like when you're dead, your soul, your real soul of the body goes to heaven or hell, or like in the middle, just waiting for like judgment, judgment day. Yeah. And then your other self, like a Jinn part of you that's not you, but like a clone of you, goes down to earth and just lingers around there. So sometimes when I see like a lady or like a lost soul, it's definitely not your real original soul. It's like your Jinn. That's what I learned from my culture. So in American culture, I wanted to learn if it's the same or not.
So it's funny, we were just talking about this and recently I had mentioned that mirrors in almost every culture have this deep supernatural connection, and what you're referring to in some routes in the Western world we would call a doppelganger.
Doppelganger.
And the interesting thing about a doppelganger, and I have experience with this is utterly terrifying.
Very terrifying. Yes, very.
The idea is that a doppelganger is your reflective self. It is a self that is very determined to take over the life. Yeah. So while you're living your life, your doppelganger is suffering. It's suffering because it is not alive. It is attached to you but can't function. It's basically being dragged through existence. And if given the opportunity, it'll kill you. Your doppelganger will try to take over your life. And in many stories, when a doppelganger takes over, it accounts for a difference in character. Like, one day a man is very kind and the next day he's very cruel. One day a person's very generous and the next day they're very miserly. Yeah. And it's because the doppelganger, the other one, took over. And it's fascinating because I think a lot of cultures believe in this alternate self, this concept of something that isn't you but is attached to you. And I think some cultures will, that's your guardian angel. And some cultures are like, you've got a shadow following you. And there's this notion. And that's interesting too, because I use the word demon all the time, but it doesn't denote like a religious concept to me. Demon is just a word that works.
It's a catch-all.
It makes perfect sense. And I usually categorize most demons as non-human entities, some spiritual energy that is just malevolent, and its purpose is inscrutable to us. But I also believe that humans can become demonic. That the human spirit can abandon what makes it human. And I usually categorize it as obsession.
Yes.
If you're willing to forego all other human interests for one, if you just want that one thing, it burns away at your humanity. And once your humanity is entirely burned away, you are dangerous. You can do damage. That dark spirit becomes obsessive about something. And the thing that you're obsessed about doesn't necessarily have to be evil. It's not like, I'm after revenge, and then you have this vengeful spirit. It's, I want to see my child again. And as all of those pieces shed away, all those other things, and it's just, I want child, and then it's just, I want. And anything in your way that doesn't give it to you is in your way. So you're willing to bully your way through it. So I do believe that there are instances where a human spirit, a person who's died and lingers, can forego its humanity, and it becomes something dark and malevolent. And I think those are probably the spirits that are most interactive with us.
Yep.
Because I even think that demons are on a plane that is a little different than ours, and to encounter them requires force on their part or ritual on our part. There's a two-way door there, but I do think that some spirits just lose their humanity.
Because even if you're alive, in my culture again, even if you're alive, your Jinn is with you, lingers around. So my cousin, shout out to you, Akmal, can speak to Jinn. He can actually talk to Jinn. For example, he can talk to your Jinn, he can talk to your Jinn. Your Jinn lingers around. So one time, this story is kind of funny at the same time. So I broke up with my ex-boyfriend, and then I asked Akmal, hey, can you talk to his Jinn, please? Are you okay to do that? Because I know it's a lot of trouble. He's like, no, it's not trouble. So he actually closed his eyes and talked to my ex's Jinn, and he actually told, and then my cousin told me, yeah, he's still in love with you. I'm like, really? And then the next day he actually texted me. He's like, oh, I'm still in love with you, right? So I'm like, you have a power that? Wow. Yeah.
But that's fascinating too, because in Western culture there are mediums whose sole method of mediumship or psychic ability is to speak to a spirit. And oftentimes they can identify the spirit. Oftentimes they'll say, oh, this is so and so from the 1400s, and and their ability to interact is very interesting, because and I've spoken about this before. It's difficult for a spirit to learn. It's difficult for a spirit to get information. The information that it has, I think it keeps. When you die, you have all the information. It's just stored in the cloud. But with a Jinn, with that concept, you've got a spirit that is actually linked to a body that can process information. And so that makes sense. It makes a huge amount of sense to think that there's a spirit that would latch onto you and then would resemble you, because it's using your knowledge base to expand its own. And it can interact, and it can go out. And I think that Western mediums might be talking to Jinn. And when you think about attaching a spirit that can attach to us and walk around with us, it could happen for generations. My child actually talked for right until the teens, talked to a variety of imaginary friends was the Western concept, but they were very knowledgeable and very peculiar. And after a time, they seemed demonic because of their intent, because they seemed to have an intention that was not necessarily very straightforward. So I oftentimes wonder, if a Jinn, spirit-wise, can grow and learn, it might linger and just take the next life and the next life. And then you have generations of information inside a single spirit, which would seem wise and would seem, it would have all of this information, which is dangerous, because we're constantly looking for information. Asking.
So basically your Jinn might be beside you, your Jinn might be beside you, my Jinn might be beside me, or still lingers around. But I can feel my Jinn is beside me, oh, hey, what's up? Because if I actually talk about Jinns, my Jinn will come to me.
So
it's literally behind me right now, actually. I can feel it.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
So when I first met Luna, she told me about this spirit called Pocong.
Ooh.
I know.
Oh, Pocong, yeah.
Yes. Big fan of it. It's very creepy. Luna, would you like to explain? I know Luna hates this, but
I really hate it. Don't want to see it. Yeah, I can explain it.
Yeah.
My eyes are watering right now because I can feel it, actually. So Pocong actually is so when you die in Muslim culture, when you die, you are covered with like white cloth and cottons. But in a version of Pocong, it's the same thing, except your face is red and your eyes and nose are bleeding. It's very, very scary. And you don't want to see that, guys, because you will suffer a nightmare, because I don't want to see that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not? And again, very rudimentary understanding of Pocong was a part of the ritual of the burial was to tie and bind the feet. And then after a certain amount of time, you cut the ties to release the spirit. You're basically binding the spirit to the body so it doesn't go wandering around. Yeah. And then you cut the rope. And in some instances, it's people didn't cut the rope and the spirit remained in the physical body.
Bindings,
and then because I always found this interesting in China, a vampire hops.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So you got
like
the hopping
as well.
Yeah. Well, and
Pocong
it's because
hops as well. Yeah.
They bind the feet. And that's why they hop. They don't hop because it's it's because their feet are bound, which is super creepy when you think about it.
And your body as well is all tied.
Right, you're all tied up
so
in
it's
a
like you
in a
jump
shroud.
like that. I don't want to see them, guys. No, never.
Yeah.
Which also, fascinatingly, brings us up to the most recognized ghost. Like if I asked almost anybody to draw a ghost, they would draw the sheet with the Charlie Brown ghost. That is the international, and people don't realize that it comes because the last time people see the dead, they're usually wrapped in a shroud.
Yep.
And the ghost itself is a person walking around in their shroud.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the Pocong, the blood coming out of the eyes and the mouth, likely there were various plagues that would cause that kind of disorder. And if you put a person in a shroud and the blood starts seeping through the shroud, that is a ghastly image. And can you imagine looking at this body? Because
right now,
even,
guys.
even that concept of keeping a body around in the shroud for a time before proper burials or whatever ritual is going on.
So my cousin actually, the first time he saw like a spirit or a Jinn was actually a Pocong.
Oh no!
He told me he was like 8 years old and he was walking around the house and he saw Pocong like standing in the house. He ran to my uncle, his dad. He ran to my uncle crying, and my uncle just stared at him. Oh, it's just a Pocong, because my uncle is literally used to like seeing evil spirits and scary stuff. So at that point, it's like, oh, it's just Pocong, you're fine.
Yeah.
But it's scary. I never want to see that in my life.
I'm trying to think because I vaguely recall a Pocong story that was suggesting that a Pocong might be multiple spirits that that are just lost and they're given an opportunity to be inside a single body structure. And very vague, I know, but it seemed like that it was one of those things where a door opens in this body and then the spirits go in, because it kind of harkens to a lot of the beliefs of human sacrifice, is the concept that at the moment of death, a door between worlds opens. The reason why you do a human sacrifice, is you're trying to attract something from the other side of the door. So when you kill an animal or person, whatever, that spirit goes through the door, but that door is useful because you can draw something into it. Ooh. And the concept being, you lay a dead body out and it has this opportunity to be a vessel because a door opens. The door is open for the spirit to leave. And in some cultures, the belief is that the spirit doesn't just leave when you die. Yeah. It stays in the body I think that might be one of those why do you have a wake? You know, why?
Yeah.
And it was because of misdiagnosis. You know? Sometimes they buried living people, so they would hold these wakes. They put the body on a table and they'd wait to make sure it's dead.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it will wake and it will come. You know, and then everybody will celebrate. But that makes an interesting thing because that means the door is creaking open.
Oh,
you know, that body, that spirit is supposed to be leaving that body. And maybe spirits are reluctant to leave the body because they're like, I don't know, I'm going to get up.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like, give me a second, I'll give up.
Well, and there's also a lot of instances that happen at morgues too.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's so I'm sure there's lots of Pocongs hanging out
yes, there's
at
a
the
lot
morgue.
yeah, there is. No, I felt it.
Yeah,
a lot.
It's and it's kind of that same concept. You know, the door is still open. These bodies are very fresh if they're still at the morgue. You know. So that would actually make a lot of sense if they are just Pocongs.
No, like, because my uncle told me as well, like, this Indonesian ghosts are not just in Indonesia, but they're actually all around the world.
Oh, of course.
America, wherever I go, they will always be there. So I'm like, really? I had no idea. He was like, yep.
Well,
it's not just Indonesia, Luna. It's literally everywhere. I'm like,
this is the terrible quote of the day. People are more likely to be haunted than houses. People are more likely to be haunted than anything else because we are that source. So when you experience ghosts, especially clairvoyants, especially people who have the vision, ghosts love being seen.
Oh yeah.
And so if you see one, it immediately says that one can see.
No, especially,
and it will follow you around.
Yeah, especially like we talk about them right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're gathering with us right now.
Yeah.
I can feel it behind me too.
And that is why Savannah is the most haunted city on earth. It's because we talk about our ghosts. We tell the stories every day. From dusk till midnight, there are hundreds of stories being told and woven. And so the very fabric of Savannah is held together supernaturally by this summoning. Yeah. Because talking about it is summoning.
Yeah.
It is arousing the interest of the spirits. They know we're talking about them. And they draw in. They draw closer. And if you have a friend who's clairvoyant, don't talk about ghosts. Yeah. Because they will draw in. They will come to the table.
Yep. And what I learned from my uncle is that if we talk about them, they will come around, like you all know. Yeah. And they actually want to learn about what we learn about them. Like, I want to learn, like the ghost might say, like, oh, what do you learn about us? I want to hear it. You know, like they love learning about themselves.
That does open
from us.
That concept of my belief being that spirits generally can't learn on their own. They do learn through our process. You know, we have the brain, the physical brain. Therefore, when we process information, the spirits have access to it and can hold it for themselves, which becomes hyper dangerous for the clairvoyant. Yep. Because there are spirits out there who are really hungry for knowledge.
Very much so.
And they're actually like, I have another story to tell about my cousin. My cousin was actually possessed back in Indonesia. Shout out to you, Telaras, maaf ya, but I need to tell the story. Yeah. So my cousin, she's used to be very weak. She was very skinny and she doesn't eat a lot. So like, because of that really weak energy, the ghosts would come to her. So one day my mom actually told me, oh, you know Telaras, right? She's from Karawang, Sunda. So we're all Sundanese family. So my mom told me, Kak, I'm like, yeah, what is it? Do you know Telaras? I'm like, yeah, what's up? She's possessed. I'm like, possessed? I don't believe that. She's like, no, it's real, Kak. Like, we called the priest and everything. I didn't believe at possession at first, but because of my cousin, now I believe it. Yeah. So like I said, my cousin was weak and she doesn't eat much. So the ghost, this ghost, adult ghost, he's a male. He's actually very sweet and kind. He's not evil at all. But he went to my cousin possessed because he's in love with my cousin. Like that ghost was in love with my cousin. Like from what I learned, that he actually lost his first love. So his Jinn just lingers around and then saw my cousin really pretty because my cousin's really pretty. My cousin really pretty. And then because she also has a weak energy, just comes into her body. So random times my cousin will actually fainted. Like one time in the house, in the mall, she just randomly fainted and then took her to the hospital. The doctor said, oh, she's actually fine. She's not even sick at all. Like, not even sick. She's fine. So from what I learned and then we called the priest because she kept fainting. Oh, she's possessed. Very badly.
And what was the process of dealing with the possession?
So dealing with the possession, when my cousin fainted, the ghost would actually talk to her, like in another realm, or like in her dream, saying, "Oh, I'm in love with you. I want to be with you." But my cousin said, "You cannot be in love with the living. You're already dead, or you're probably a Jinn. You know, we don't know who you are." And then the priest tried to like exorcist, did I say correct? Like exorcist her and everything. It's that spirit is very strong. Took us a while to get that ghost out of my cousin's body.
Sure.
And we also told our cousin to eat more, drink more, drink, do whatever to have that energy up again. And now she's actually fine. So your energy as well, you have to like control your energy, because my cousin, she was, like I said, she was very weak. So she just eats a lot, gain some weight, run around, so that because that energy like overwhelms her, the ghost doesn't want her anymore. Like the energy just goes up high up.
Well, and it might have even just been saying that it was in love with her more so because it wanted a vessel. A lot of times.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know, in love with the life.
Yeah.
But it also raises an interesting question of the concept of past lives, and the concept of perhaps she is a reincarnation of his love, and that is how he was drawn to her. And fascinatingly enough is the concept, and I've seen it in a couple of instances where you're dealing with a counter-cultural spirit, meaning he wasn't Muslim, or he wasn't Catholic, or he wasn't whatever rites of exorcism you were using, makes a slight resistance, because the process by which they exist is a series of enforced ritual and enforced belief. So if you're trying to fight off a spirit with your Catholic exorcism, sometimes it rebounds because it doesn't follow that faith. And then it's just a question of faith versus faith. Then it's a question of whether the spirit has the ability to counter the amount of faith. And that's why we turn to priests. We turn to people who dedicate their lives to putting strength in their faith. And the stronger your faith, the more resistant you are to another entity that's using its faith to guide it.
Yep.
So I do have a question of when you moved to Savannah, did the ghosts look different to you than, like, say, when you were in Indonesia, or is it, or do they all still look the same in a way? I know it's,
some look the same, some doesn't, because, like, as my uncle said, like, oh, if you move to America, like Pocong, kuntilanak, and some Indonesian ghosts, folk tale, they'll be around here. I'm like, okay. So the first time I actually moved to Savannah, I lived in Boundary Village, because I went to SCAT, so Boundary Village, now that I work in the underground, they told me about the Galagichi and the Hag, and the swamp is near Boundary Village. So when I actually first came out Boundary Village, I had the worst sleeping paralysis ever. Like, I was sleeping and I told my prayers, okay, this room that I'm living in is very, very scary and haunted. So I sent my prayers, please don't disturb me, I just want to go to sleep. But then they disturbed me. So I was, it felt like my chest was being hard, like someone, how do I say the word?
Pressing down.
Pressed me down hard, and I couldn't like wake up. And then I heard like that, and I was like, oh, you see, I have goosebumps right now. So it's like, and then I was like, please. And then I tried to look up, and I don't want to look around, because my whole life I have sleeping paralysis. I started when I was like 10 years old, and right now it's stopped, but sleeping paralysis is not really what I want to experience anymore, but I've been experiencing that. But yeah, the first, I think it's like a welcome gift to Savannah. Welcome to Savannah, like something like that, like the sleeping paralysis. And then when I woke up, I've never cried so much, because it was so scary. Because if I turn around, I'll see like when I turn around like that, like looking my eye, I already see like a long hair, and I just like look my eyes like that, like I don't want to see that. I don't want to turn around, because I already look straight, and when I look like this, like my eyes just like my eyeballs just look at that. I already see a long hair. I'm like, nope. Yeah. Please wake me up. Please wake me up. And then I just like the way I woke up, I have to move around. Like I have to move around. And then I woke up like like I'm back in another realm. I'm like, oh my God. And then I start crying. I call my mom, there's a demon here. I can't. She's like, Luna, say your prayer. Say your prayer right now. It's fine. Say your prayer. So I sage the whole room, say my prayers, and like never see that again. So when I actually came to work in the underground, I learned about the Hag, and I got into a point where like, oh, so that's the hag who was disturbing me in my sleep. Yes. Wow. Okay.
I was actually familiar with the hag before sleep paralysis.
Yes.
I knew the story of the hag before anybody came up with or told me about sleep paralysis. And it was fascinating because sleep paralysis makes sense from a simple scientific conversation. It's when you wake up, but the system that keeps your body from flailing around a lot in your sleep doesn't. The switch doesn't get turned, because when you go to sleep, in order to keep you from acting out your dreams or doing things, your body actually shuts down a lot of that physical movement.
People
you can wake up paralyzed, and as paralyzed, it creates an almost waking dream scenario. And people talk about seeing figures and feeling pressure and like something sitting on their chest and all these things. And mind you, I heard this after I was, well into the folklore of being ridden by the hag.
Yeah.
And in the Gullah Geechee culture around here, there is an entity called the hag. And sometimes it'll actually disguise itself by wearing a skin suit to look like the person you love.
Yeah.
And then peel the skin suit off and get on you. And it's basically sucking your life away.
Oh,
yeah.
And what was fascinating is prayer. In a lot of the stories of the hag, if you call out to God, the hag will release. It will go away.
Yeah.
But even speaking is difficult.
Speaking is definitely, it doesn't help at all.
Finding yourself, pressed down and having that. So it's, again, one of those questions of faith. These are powerful entities, supposedly. When you're dealing with something like the hag, it is a force of nature. It's like trying to stop a hurricane by saying, please stop.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very...
So it does. It's very difficult.
It's very depressing because, like, I had sleeping paralysis since I was 10, and it always disturbed me. The scariest one I had, too, was when my uncle passed away. So when my uncle passed away the next day, because the house was like... because a lot of our families came to that house, so I had to share that with my dad. So I was sleeping with my dad. And then suddenly I was pressed down again, and I was like, okay, what's going on again? Because I'm used to sleeping paralysis. What's going on? So I looked around, and I'm like, okay, there's nothing. But then my dad woke me up, God, wake up. Because in real life, I was shaking like this, like I was like shaking like that, like I was being possessed. And I woke up like, Dad, he's like, Luna, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Okay, go to sleep again. So I had to hold my dad's hand while sleeping because it's very, very scary. And then it went back to me again. I'm like, okay, again, what do you want from me, demon? So, and then the reason why I don't want to turn around anymore is because I saw a demon. So this is the first time I turned around in a sleeping paralysis. So I was looking there, and I turned my head around, and there was this figure. It's my uncle, but he has no head. He was with a suit because when he passed away, he was wearing a suit. So we wore him a suit because he's Christian. So he was wearing a suit with a glove like that, and there was no head at all. And he was like speaking like, I can hear him like, and I cannot take it. And I screamed so loud, and my body was like, in real life, got worse, and I was even moving like that. I scream in my sleep to like, and my dad like, God, wake up. Like I can hear my dad like in another realm, wake up. So I have to like find a way for me to jump to another realm, back to my own realm, but I couldn't. So I actually like screamed and said, please stop disturbing me. I just want to sleep. And I said like my Indonesian prayer, and then I felt like my body dropped to my, I felt like my soul of my body dropped back to my physical body, and I woke up like, and I started crying, and everyone in the room gathered me around. Are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. This is like, there's a demon in this room. There's a demon. It's my uncle who died. And then this is my dad's side family, so no one actually can see ghosts. So my mom actually came in, and my mom was like, it's okay, it's fine. It's just a Jinn, Luna. I said, a Jinn? And I started crying. I don't want to see that anymore. Like, no, so like my dad had to hug me when I sleep. My mom was sleeping in the other room with my sister because the house is crampedly small, so cousins and aunts has to like share room, and my dad had to hug me while I sleep. I'm like, I can't do this. And my mom actually came in an hour later to hug me. So I was sleeping with like both of my parents hugging me like that because I grew up, I cannot sleep alone because ghosts and spirits love to disturb me because they want to talk to me because I know I have this clairvoyant psychic like that sees. So like my whole life I've been sleeping with like my mom, my dad, or like my sister, or like I have to on like loud music in order for me to sleep because dead silent, they like to come to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but right now my sleeping paralysis, I had no sleeping paralysis at the moment, hopefully. So because they know, I think that I've been using my uncle probably used me a protection and stuff. So, yeah, no, I don't want to experience sleeping paralysis anymore. Never again.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, it is a very frightening experience, and it is interesting to hear the similarities that people have with sleeping paralysis, you know?
Yeah.
And how almost every single person I've heard of all see that like figure of the creepy woman in the corner of their room or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And some people actually believe that they might be succubus or things like that. So
the hag actually has kind of a succubus angle.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually about
draining you,
but also formulating a relationship, almost a romantic relationship with its victim. You know, a lot of times, in many of the stories, you marry the hag. You know, you marry the hag. You marry the hag, not realizing that it's the hag. Yeah. And then one night, peels off the skin, or at night it peels off the skin and slowly sucks your life away. Which might be just a terrible metaphor for marriage. You know, might just be a culture saying, "Hey, you know what? Marriage is terrible. You peel the skin off, see the real monster, sucks your life away." But I think that it all comes from this fear of supernatural betrayal.
Yeah.
You know, we live in a world that we set the rules, and if something breaks the rules, it really bothers us. It really upsets us. So yeah, the concept of the hag being ridden by even that evocatively seems pseudosexual. You know, that the hag climbs on you and rides you.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways technically to like ward off a hag. I mean, historically with the Gullah Geechees, they believed in brooms.
Paint's blue color.
Yeah, paint blue. I mean, paint blue is great for just like a catch-all
word.
Yeah. Definitely. But they were actually the ones that really brought it into the culture of Savannah. JT is bringing me a perfect broom for this. Yes, Luna, if you want to hold it up. But yeah, so they would tie, paint blue string around their brooms and whatnot to kind of ward off spirits you could lay it on your doorway, so that way it would have a hard time crossing over. It was also said that a lot of times they would count the bristles.
I find that to be one of the most fascinating things, because there's several legends where you can stop different entities by throwing things in their path that they have to stop and count, suggesting that a lot of spirits have obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah, that they can't stand it, and it shows up in vampire lore a lot. The idea that if you throw poppy seeds down, the spirit has to stop, and the vampire will 1, 2, 3.
Speaking of vampires, my mom said vampires are so much better than Indonesian ghost. She just said, it's just the fangs, it doesn't matter. They just eat blood, but Indonesian ghost, I'm not having it. That's what my mom said.
Well, and that's funny, because you look at the different cultures and the supernatural beings that come your way.
Yeah.
Vampires.
She's bringing more brooms.
More brooms.
Right there.
Everybody.
I was like,
See, this would take a while to count.
Yes.
But yeah, the fact that different cultures know and categorize their baddies, because vampires are highly romanticized and just the fangs, and they're physical.
My mom always do this. It's just a fang. You don't have to be scared of vampires. They just eat blood.
And in certain cultures, vampires can't.
How many brooms?
We are protected.
How many brooms can JT bring to us? We are a very protected group.
Well, I would like to point out we are actually sitting in a building where we reenact a hag attack. This is the Savannah Underground, is where we're actually
the hag will probably disturb in my sleeping is probably here as well. So hey, please don't disturb in my sleep anymore.
The building that we're actually in is quite haunted, to be very honest. I mean, so the thing is with this building is it actually used to be an old train station, but it's also located in kind of where the outskirts of Savannah were. It was a lot of swamp area. It was actually very common for a lot of times for slaves to escape and come out here to the swamps so that they wouldn't get found. So a lot of times I've actually seen a spirit in this room that was more than likely an escaped slave, because when we were originally putting up the lights in the ceiling, I was up on the scaffolding rig and I looked down and I just see an African-American man squatting down completely naked, almost like he was hiding. But I could see him, so, he kind of saw me and was like, shh. you know.
Yeah.
But that was what really sent in my digging of, you know.
Yeah.
But so we see spirits like that. There's also a lady in the bay next door where originally we had been set up. And I call her the gray lady because she looks just like the gray lady from Harry Potter. I really, that's the only way I can describe it, is she just, she has that aura of just sadness and darkness.
Yeah.
You know, Luna felt her too immediately when she came in for her audition, but she hasn't really ever done anything that would cause concern, but anytime she's around, you just feel this oppressive nature of it. Yeah, sorrow.
When I first came here to do my audition, I saw that room and my eyes actually tear up. Like, there's something that the ghost wants to tell me.
And worth mentioning, we are right next to, or close enough to, the bloodiest battle, the second bloodiest battle of the Revolutionary War. The siege of Savannah actually occurred 2 blocks, this way, which should include this area, conceptually. And we're talking like the Hessians just bore down on and it's funny because you always talk about the siege of Savannah. Yep. The imagination is that it was when the British took over Savannah. It's not true. The British had Savannah. They established it very quickly. So it was revolutionaries trying to take back Savannah. And they're running up this little hill right there, and they were massacred. They did not fare well.
Not at all.
And so this whole area is just ripe with combat,
absolutely,
with slaves, with endless sorrows that just soaked into the ground here. And then a train station, which is about transience. It's about a place where spirits interact and go. And so it becomes a focal point. When you think about like airports and train stations, it's where a lot of living people converge and then separate. And so the energy of life seems to pulse inside these places where people gather and then disperse. You can even say that about theaters. All theaters are haunted, every single one. So in a theater, you have people gathering, and all this energy is being come and focused. All their energy is focused towards something.
Yeah.
It's focused towards the performers. It's focused towards this recreation of life. It's focused. So energy flows that way, and spirits will follow the energy. And then they'll find people who can see, and they'll say, that's my new home.
Yep.
So.
Speaking of that, actually, that's so related because my mom, 3 years ago, my mom and I went to Hollywood. Bear in mind, this Hollywood Airbnb is very, very haunted, and I had no idea about it. So, we just saw, the reviews saying, oh, it's a perfect place to stay. Awesome. So when we actually arrived there, everything was so vintage. Yeah. It was, all 1930s, 1920s, old American cinema style. And my mom was like, Luna, I feel so much things here. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is great. She's like, no. So then we saw the elevator is actually old school elevator. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Back then, I feel it, but I didn't really care about it. So I'm like, just having fun. But my mom is more sensitive than I am. So she's already shivering a lot. So I apologize, Mom. Sorry about that. So we went to the elevator and we went to our Airbnb. This Airbnb is so cool. They have the rooftops and everything. It's very cool. But one night, my mom went through a terrifying thing. So actually at night gets really scary. That's where I felt the most too. So I'm like, every time we go to the bathroom, I have to wake her up. Mom, can you take me to the bathroom? I can't. So, and when she needs the bathroom, Luna, wake up. We need to go to the bathroom together. So I held her hand every day to the bathroom. But she experienced something terrifying, like I said. So when she was asleep, there's this lady ghost living there. She's just lingering around, and she might be this lady who's an actor from the old American cinema, 1920s, 30s. Probably loved jewelry so much. She loves the jewelries. So that night, my mom was asleep, and she felt like someone was trying to grab her necklace like this. And I was asleep already. I was dead asleep because I was tired. And this ghost was trying to grab her necklace. And my mom said, can you please, don't disturb me? This is one of my favorite necklaces. Just go away from me. So the ghost and my mom woke up, and it's my mom opened her eyes, and it's gone. And she looked at me, and I was asleep, and she's like, oh, my God, we need to get out of here. She told me the next day. I'm like, oh, cool, Mom. That's an amazing experience. And I told myself, why didn't it disturb me? Why didn't it disturb me? And then she said, because you have no jeweler in you. Because that ghost, Luna, might be a ghost who loves jewelries from the like 1930s, 20s, who loves acting and rich. So she probably wants to steal my jewelry. I'm like, true.
Well, originally when you said hotel or like Airbnb in Hollywood, an elevator, I was like, oh God, did they say the Hotel Cecil? Oh, I was like, Luna, no.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting. I mean, we hear a lot about spirits, you know, grabbing people's jewelry and things like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of times I feel like it's just because they're shiny and it's something to pick up on. There's a ghost at the Sorrel Weed House that Matilda, actually, she's the one who likes to pull people's dangly earrings out.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Oh, yeah, it happened to me. It's so for some reason, she just has a problem with dangly earrings, and you'll just feel it, and it'll go, yeet, and then she'll chuck it across the room.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
And that happens a lot with spirits. So, you know, it could just be that it's something easy to grab onto, or, you know, it could just be because it's shiny and it's something tangible.
It's also worth talking about antiques.
Yes.
Antiques can oftentimes have spiritual attachments. You know, you take something out of somebody's home, there was the energy of the life of the home. There was a family and love, and there was, you know, all these things in the home. You take it out, it carries with it the energy of the place. You put it in a new place, and sometimes energies conflict.
Yeah.
And you can get that friction between, like, the energy of this, you know, vase. You put it down, and then all of a sudden you are met with strange encounters. And some things are just so beloved of people, you know, that necklace, that earring, that thing in their life, that was their treasure. And if you get the treasure, they will follow the treasure.
No, yeah.
But if you're wearing something that reminds them of it, you're basically giving it an era cue. You're basically saying, this belongs to you. This was yours in life. And I know I say it all the time, spirits really want to be alive again. You know, that's a part of it. So things that we adorn ourselves with, things that we choose to represent ourselves with, become the prize of the supernatural. They want, you know, the thing that we invest in, or that we adorn ourselves with.
Yeah. Speaking of antiques, back in my culture again, antiques are actually like very strong with spirits as well. So my friend's dad, shout out to you, Dinda. So my friend's dad actually bought this antique. It's a sword antique, and it's very, very spiritual and powerful. And Dinda and like her brother cannot see ghosts, and they're not originally clairvoyant at all. So because her dad bought that antique and they start touching it, the clairvoyant senses actually came out because of that antique. So sometimes, from what I learned, antiques can make you become clairvoyant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is something that we kind of talk about is the sense that it is more about your ability to perceive is oftentimes stunted by the culture and by growing up. You know, that's why children are far more likely to see ghosts than adults, is because they haven't shut the door.
Yeah.
You know, and we spend most of our childhood being told that doesn't exist. There's no monster there, none of that. And so we're closing the door every time somebody is like, that doesn't exist, it's not real. The more we accept that's not real, the tighter we can close that door. And there are people who close it so tightly that no matter of supernatural events will open the door for them. But on the converse side, some of us are wide open.
Exactly.
And you could come into contact with something that is broadcasting and that is pushing on the other side of the door with such force.
Yeah.
I know somebody who had a knife that was used in a murder, and when he got it, he just immediately started having all of this vision and these things, and even things that were not related to the knife. It was just because the knife carried with it a spiritual aspect. His life was then, the door creaked open a little.
Well, and a lot of times the objects that are used very frequently in your daily life, those are the ones that are more likely to, have some energy attached to it and have stronger energy. So that's why a lot of times you see mirrors being haunted too, because we use them every single day. Just random things. Sometimes hairbrushes can be haunted, just because we're constantly putting our own energy into them, and they're, oftentimes touching our own body, touching our hair, wearing jewelry all the time. A lot of times that can become haunted.
Yeah.
So depending on how often they used it too, that could have been the reason why it was just especially, super energetic. But sometimes it does just take one occurrence for the light switch to go off in somebody's head to start becoming more open to their clairsenses.
Scary.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite Indonesian ghost story? I'm very intrigued to hear.
None, but the first ghost that I've learned about is definitely Pocong, because every Indonesian loves, not every, I'm sorry, but every Indonesian ghost I've seen in cinemas is Pocong 1, Pocong 2, Pocong 3, 4, 5, 7, Pocong everywhere, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch in the cinema, sorry, because it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pocong is definitely one of my favorite stories, but at the same time, I will never want to see you again, Pocong. I will never want to see them ever, because I've never seen one. Yeah. I can only feel them sometimes. There's one time back in Indonesia, back home, I went upstairs to game with my friend, and then in that room, because it's so empty and no one actually been in that room in a while, because I don't live in Indonesia anymore, there's this long-haired lady sitting in the corner like that, just staring at me. I forgot what's the ghost called, but my mom talked about it with you guys that day at the house.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
I forgot the name, actually. Or should I call my mom right now? Hey, Mom.
It's okay. We'll put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Or something.
So my mom actually told me about that ghost, long hair, and she just she was skinny and looking like that. And actually, I saw it for a glimpse, because it was just telling me, hey, I'm right here. Just be careful. I'm right here. I'm not going to disturb you. I'm like, okay. So I tapped my third eye again, and then as soon as I looked there, I saw a figure. It's not clear because I tapped my third eye. So it was a figure like that. And I'm like, okay, it's a Pocong, but I don't want to see you. Anyways, just leave me alone. It's just sitting right there.
I remember she said it was a Sundel Bolong.
Sundel Bolong. Yes.
Sundel Bolong.
Very scary. Don't want to see that again.
So just to paint the picture of it in your head, because when Luna's mom was telling me about this, she was talking about how there's something on its back. It literally, when you look it up, the photos of it in the drawings, it's all sometimes it's almost like a hole into their back, but usually it's like a face growing out of it, to make another Harry Potter reference. Imagine when Voldemort's growing out of the back of Professor Quirrell's head. It looks like that growing out of the back of a woman's spine. And so it's very frightening.
Yeah.
I mean,
because sometimes from what I learned about Sundel Bolong, so my mom's friend actually also a clairvoyant. So this ghost, I think it's Sundel Bolong or kuntilanak or any type of long, because in Indonesia there's a lot of long-haired ghosts.
Well, actually throughout Asia.
Yeah. Throughout Asia in general.
And it even became synonymous with Japanese horror.
Yeah.
Yes.
With The Ring and The Grudge, this concept of the hair. Because it masks the face.
Yeah.
And anything that hides the face becomes almost instantly scary to us.
Yeah. So my mom's friend actually went through almost a possession as well, because this ghost actually was in her back just every day. This ghost liked to be in her back. So basically my mom's friend was carrying her and didn't notice until the priest told her, because she felt heavy in the back, ouch, what is this? It's my back pain. And when she went to the priest, realized that it wasn't really anything. Oh, there's a ghost just sitting behind your back all the time. So you're basically carrying it every day. That's why her husband always said, you don't look so good all the time. What's going on? Your energy seems different. So when she went to the priest, oh yeah, there's a ghost behind you. You need to remove that. It's very hard to remove that, but it's removed.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that doesn't create the spirit with the face on the back is that attachment. And if it feeds and you die because of it, and you have this spirit that has been feeding on you, you can see this remnant of it on your back.
Yeah.
And so you're basically sharing a soul at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's not classical possession in the sense that we think of it. It's more about a symbiotic.
Yeah, it's a leech almost.
It's a leech.
Yeah,
like a ghostly leech that would definitely freak you out if you saw it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that all goes back to how Chris was saying, you know, people are haunted sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like even in Western cultures, you know, there is folklore of people having something attached to them.
Yeah.
And they're carrying it all the time until finally they get rid of it. Because a lot of times it happens to children too, where a ghost will take advantage of their innocence, you know, and they grow with them throughout life and end up, you know, turning into demonic possession cases.
Yeah, because they want to hold on to the life. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
My sister was very psychic as a child. And fascinatingly, my sister was very psychic as a child. And when she was 20 years old, she had brain surgery. And the psychic ability left.
Oh.
It was fascinating. Because she used to be able to tell when songs were on the radio before she turned it on. She knew who was calling her before the phone rang. And this was, you know, before we had cell phones. And she just had this gift. And one of the stories was when she was like 3 years old, we went by a cemetery and she saw this woman in the cemetery.
Yeah.
And the woman followed her home and became kind of the invisible friend. My sister talked to her all the time. She knew her name, and she would interact with this woman. And then, you know, as these things happened, the woman faded away, and, you know, just one of those stories that we tell. Well, my sister was very ill when she was 13 years old. And when she was 13 years old, she was sick in the hospital, and they were about to give her, and it was like a 2-part chemotherapy. There was the chemotherapy part, but then the secondary part was called the lukewarm rescue. The lukewarm rescue basically kept you from dying from the poison of the chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Chemotherapy is killing you. The lukewarm rescue was the antidote. So they would let the chemotherapy run its course and then give the lukewarm rescue. Well, my sister started saying, "Don't give it to me today. Don't give it to me today," because this woman was telling her that they didn't have the lukewarm rescue.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, "No, that's ridiculous." But my parents remember my sister used to talk to this woman.
Oh.
And my parents were like, "Can you check?" And sure enough, the vial of lukewarm rescue had broken and it evaporated. And they didn't have any other in the hospital. It takes a day. And by that time, my sister would have passed. So it was fascinating because that was this instant where you're like, this ghost must have been following you.
Yeah.
Just silent, you know, just you know,
Yeah.
not interacting, or you turned it off. You said, "I don't want to see you."
Yeah.
and however it happened, but it seemed like the woman still followed her. But I often wonder, because what was removed from my sister's brain was a dermal cyst, which is basically like a twin, like all the genetic material needed to make another person. So it had like a fingernail and some hair in it, and so it was a very interesting condition.
That's a very interesting concept, actually.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
And it's funny because there's a movie called The Dark Half.
Oh, yeah.
Which and a Stephen King novel, which kind of talks about this, like when we're forming in the womb, the genetic materials and genetic packs. If there's another fertilized egg, you can just absorb it. You just absorb it. And then it just becomes a part of your system. Well, this one was in my sister's brain, and when they removed it, they also removed this ability that she had always had her whole life.
That's so scary.
So, to wrap things up a little bit, Luna, would you like to plug anything before we close out?
Just be careful of Pocong or other Indonesian ghosts, guys, because it's very scary. You don't want to see them unless they will hunt you down.
That's good information.
Good
Yeah,
advice.
Very scary.
Yeah, good advice.
And if you guys like to watch Pocong movies, just search it on YouTube. And if you want to learn about Pocong, Kuntilanak, Sunda Bolong, or whatever ghost in Indonesia, just watch the movies or whatever you guys want to see, because I personally don't want to experience that anymore.
Yeah. Chris, do you have a ghost tip for us for the day?
So, in many cultures, they'll use eggs as exorcism tools. The idea being that you can take an egg and sort of attract an evil spirit, because the concept is an egg represents life, represents a soul. So an egg, in many cultures, is thought of as a good tool to draw spirits in. But if you find yourself in a haunted situation, you can hard boil an egg, take it out, and eat it with all the intent of eating a soul.
I had no idea.
And that intent might create a friction in the spirit, because no spirit wants to deal with a soul-eating monster. And that's what you are when you eat a hard-boiled egg to a spirit.
I actually had no idea about that. Wow, okay.
It's just a measure of protection.
Yep. So moral of the story, eggs are good for protein and for getting rid of demons.
It has to be in the shape of an egg.
I'm going to buy
Don't scramble
more
your
eggs right now in my house.
Yes.
Eat more eggs, guys.
Yes, eat more eggs. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us, Luna.
No,
We
thank
really
you
appreciate
guys for
having
this
you.
experience.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, we will see you again next Sunday. We are going to start uploading some bonus content, so have an eye out for that. Also, make sure to follow our TikTok, which is the Savannah Underground. We're also going to be posting lots of different ghost content on Instagram, which is also Savannah Underground. So we will see you again next week, and stay spooky, y'all.